Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Fintech News. I'm your host, Nicholas Belvo, in charge of digital marketing here at Fintech Cadence. And as always, we have the pleasure of having
Sagar, Head of Research at Fintech Cadence.
So today we have a new format that we wanted to test out with you guys, because now it's been about 3 months that we've been running Fintech News. And what we realized over the last 3 months is that every week we're speaking about funding rounds going on, that Fintech startups are raising a seed round or a series A, B, C, or D. And rather than just speaking about the round they raised, might as well dive into the startup and why they raised that money and what really they're all about, because that's at the end of the day is more interesting. Where we'll be speaking about Baton Systems and then NorthOne partnering up with Radius Bank. And then in the second part, we'll be speaking about the news. So we're going to be going over into India, where ICICI Bank introduces robotic counting arms, which is a first in India, as well as PNC, an American bank, which launches their very own open innovation startup program. Mm-hmm. So let's start right with Baton, which raises a $12 million Series A. Sagar, what do Baton Systems do?
In essence, it's a real-time reconciliation system between bank ledgers on an international level. Reconciliation is just settlement and getting your money as fast as possible as a bank. So the system right now involves 3 banks. One is the sending bank. So let's assume that you're sending money through RBC. Then it goes to India. There's a central bank that takes care of the processing and the authorization. And then it goes to my bank, let's say ICICI, which we'll talk about. So this is a long, lengthy process, and you are waiting for me to accept the cash, and I'm waiting for the cash to come into my account. Banks can't afford that because cash is king, as cliche as it may sound. So Baton is tackling that problem, trying to make the reconciliation and settlement process real time and happen as soon as possible. A big problem, you talk to any business owner and they'll be really happy about it. So exciting. Interesting to see how they'll scale the DLT process to $1 trillion industry because it's international transfer. So interesting. Let's see how it goes. And
let's just rewind first. Like, how does it work today? So if you're a business owner and you're sending money, or rather, this startup is really designed between financial institutions. For a bank and another bank, they're sending money and receiving money throughout the day, mm-hmm. right? And you're explaining reconciliation is all about, at the end of the day, instead of actually sending the transfers, mm-hmm. they're just looking at the numbers and then sending the balance at the end of the day.
Right. So that's one reconciliation, which is balance sheet reconciliation. Bank A sends money to Bank B, and there are a lot of transactions happening between the 2 banks. So they don't send money back and forth all the time. They just look at all the transactions at the end of the day, and they see the balance that needs to be transferred. Right. So that's end-of-day reconciliation as well, which DLT is looking. Not DLT. Baton is looking to solve as well, from my understanding. But the main value proposition also lies in the real-time reconciliation, which is automating this process of authorization, of making sure that the transaction is legitimate, and
right.
and then transferring the money from one party to the other.
Okay, very cool. NorthOne and Radius Bank. Mm-hmm. NorthOne, which is a Montreal startup. Do you want to tell us about them?
Yeah, NorthOne is, I'm really happy about this news. It's a Montreal-based startup. They started from First Capital Partners, which is a foundry model, VC foundry model in Montreal. He had problems in Montreal, then he moved to Toronto, difficult dealing with the regulations there as well. Moved to the US, now partnering with the Radius Bank in the US, as you mentioned. Value proposition, acting as a bank on a mobile phone for gig economy workers, freelancers, and other small businesses that don't really have the time or the money or the need for a regular tax accountant or a regular advisor at the bank, but they still have to do transactions and taxes just like a big business, but on a much smaller scale.
So it's essentially a bank account for businesses.
Bank account for businesses, taxation tool for businesses. It also gives you a perspective on your expenses, what's going on. It gives a read-only access to your accountant in case you want to share any information. It's a pretty comprehensive tool that is built. Yeah.
And then, what is Radius Bank all about?
I do not know much about Radius Bank. I believe that they serve SMBs, in the US, but I'll be happy to look into it and talk about it in the next edition.
Okay, cool. So yeah, congrats to NorthOne on that deal. That's
Really good move. I'm really happy about it, and because he's been working so hard on this startup for a very long time, so really happy that it's actually coming to fruition and there's an actual product that people will start using.
Sweet. Great. So that covers the startups we want to speak about. Now we move on to the other news. Robotic counting arm. So what's this story coming out of India all about?
Right. So in India, it's a big problem when it comes to counterfeit notes and with notes that are not usable anymore. Because we don't have plastic notes like Canada. Well, Canada have paper notes as well, but we have paper notes and they get soiled or are unusable after a while. So banks face this problem of sorting through all these notes after all the cash they collect. So instead of having a manual process to make that happen, they have a robotic arm that it's a fully automated system where where scanning technology is used to know if a note is usable or not, if it's counterfeit, and then the robotic arm sifts through all these notes and puts it in the right place. So a robotic arm is kind of a Terminator way of making it sound cool, but it's really an automated entire treasury process. It's a room that is completely automated.
Okay. And it's a first for India itself.
Yeah, based on the article, yeah, it says first for India. So
Japan already has this technology. Do we have that in Canada or in the United States?
I don't think so. I've not heard of that, but it's an interesting topic. I think there's a need for these systems wherever there's too much of counterfeit currency. So developing nations are one area, and wherever there's more crime, that could be the other market. Yeah.
Okay. And then the last topic for today was PNC. So PNC is a bank out of the US, which launches its own startup program in-house. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
It's a really interesting and a really cool concept that they've created. So imagine you and I are working in PNC, and we come up with this idea of creating a startup based on the problems that we see each day because we work in the bank. So PNC has this program where the two of us can go to a high-level executive, I believe, and say, okay, this is a problem, and we want to build a tool and a startup. We'll get equity in it, and PNC gets ownership of the tool or the product. Really great, because bank executives know problem intrinsically. They see it every day. So they're the best ones to create part of the solution. They definitely need the technical expertise and the startup mentality, but a big part is about the banking expertise. So as of now, they're working on 3 products, one is similar to what NorthOne is doing, creating a tool for gig economy workers. The second is creating a portfolio tool for retail property owners, giving them intelligence on where their store could be, with which brand or retailer or company their store could be useful when it comes to brick and mortar services. And third tool is related to RegTech, which came out of the gig economy app that they were creating. So bank executives, when they were creating the gig economy app, they had to go through a lot of regulatory hurdles and compliance issues. Based on what we read, it's a collaboration tool that streamlines this process and makes it easier. Something that we believe internally will happen quite a bit more when the GDPR comes into existence. A different version of, or modified version of GDPR comes into existence all over the world.
Right.
Yep.
And then we could get into another whole conversation about what is GDPR and what does that mean.
Definitely,
but we could save that maybe for
later,
another time. All right. Well, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed this new format. Let us know what you think. We're going to try to test it out and maybe sum it up more into elevator pitches. I'm going to test you on that, Cigar, to really, in one-liners, explain what these startups are all about. And that's it for us here today. We're at Fintech tonight for Quebec plus Fintech. If you're interested in coming to learn about the opportunities for people interested in technology, that's going to be happening at Fintech at 5 p.m. today in Montreal. And if not, we'll catch you next week at 3:30 p.m. on Tuesday for another episode of Fintech News. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a great week.